Welcome viewers to our special edition, if you like, of the discussion ahead of the International Museums Day. When were you last in a museum? Do you know what a museum is? And do you know what government thinks about museums? And in the studio we'll also have somebody who owns a museum. And we're going to have discussions on how you can join the efforts to actualize the role museums play in this economy, but also in the tourism sector, but also in the education and research sectors. In the studio, to help us navigate this topic ahead of the International Museums Day, I will introduce, starting from my extreme left, the Honorable State Minister for Tourism, Mr. Martin Mugara. And next to him is Mr. James Tumsime, who is the proprietor for Igongo Museum, in case you have been there in Mbarara. And immediately next to me is Acting Commissioner of Museums, Ms. Jacqueline Besije Nyirakiza. You told me to start with Nyirakiza first. I'll get it right as we go. Welcome, gentlemen and lady.
Thank you.
Let me start with the Honorable Minister. Come 18th, which is a couple of days away, we will have the International Museums Day. And the activities slated to that end in terms of government. Take us through what government plans to mark the International Museums Day in Uganda.
First of all, good afternoon to our viewers, and thank you for hosting us. And I'll even start by an invitation even before I say much.
Yes,
inviting everyone to come and participate on that special day on the 18th. The preparations have been ongoing for a couple of days. We started with the media launch. We've had the conference here. We have had the school outreaches. And they'll continue until the 18th, including corporate social responsibility, and a couple of activities, dinners, and of course, with the Vice President coming on the final day, opening the museum, and then having the final celebration in Soroti.
Soroti, yes.
So we're excited, first of all, having it outside Kampala, to take awareness and knowledge, and also use it as an opportunity to explore a number of tourism attractions, both in the cultural side, where the museums department is, the Nyero Rock, and a couple the commissioner will supplement. So we give a chance to the people from Kampala and the rest of the world to go and see what that part of Uganda has to offer, but also to give an opportunity to the local communities there to showcase what that region has and what that district in particular has, including the culture, the food, and so much more that we'll get to see during the trail. So in a nutshell, that's what we'll be celebrating on the 18th, and we'll be having the Vice President as a guest of honor and a couple of dignitaries.
Okay.
Yes.
Looking forward to that. Commissioner, Madam, supplement to the Minister, I might be listening and make a decision that I'm going to go to Soroti. What is up for me when I'm there to celebrate International Museums Day?
Thank you very much, moderator. Yes, we have a lot in stock. One, the minister has mentioned that those who are going on 17th, they will have free entry or visiting and enjoying Nyero Rock art.
Okay.
One of our sites that are more than 5,000 years old. And so if you have seen the symbol or the logo for the Museums and Monuments Department, the picture you see there of the designs is what you find on the rocks. But still, we are going to have all the culture dances, and that is the culture evening. To those who have not tasted the traditional foods in that side of the eastern region, they will be able to taste that. We are looking at the eastern region, meaning that we shall have the Bamasaba, you know, from Mbare to the whole of East Karamoja come to showcase their cultural heritage. So there is a lot in stock, and indeed we are calling upon the public to come and join us.
Okay, I can imagine that what happens to those small towns when the hotels are booked out and you look for accommodation sometimes. And
that is what tourism wants,
is about.
To see that, you know, we do these activities to support the hotel owners and other, you know, people or investors in tourism sector, for all of them to benefit.
All right, makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm a tourism enthusiast, by the way, but that's a story for another day. Still sticking with the event, International Museums Day, the theme that Uganda has chosen, slightly away from the world, is museums for education and, museums shaping knowledge for the future. That's our theme. A little bit slightly away from what the world theme is museums for education and research. But Uganda decided to take a tangent and say museums shaping knowledge for the future. Let me come back to you, Honorable Minister. What was the thought behind this theme, and how is it going to come alive as far as government is concerned this year?
Well, first of all, there is hardly really a big difference. Of course, we are taking into consideration the kind of world we are in today, but also speaking to the kind of society that Uganda is representative of today, the kind of generation and the new mode of communication and reaching out. And I think that is why we spoke about communication towards the future in terms of passing this information forward. So that is one of the reasons why we chose that form in considering those few issues I've raised.
Okay. Madam Commissioner, you want to add flesh to that also, to what the Minister said, the theme, actualizing it is all to come alive, and you...
Yes, museum shaping the future, because this underpins the role of museum in education, in innovation, in research. So actually we did not deviate, but we are trying to domesticate the theme, the international theme, and saying that, you know, this, we have to show the role of museum in shaping the future knowledge. We've observed, or we had a long discussion, and we note that museums over globally, you find that technology starts with museum.
Absolutely.
And if you want to know more about technology still, you'll go to the museum, because if something, any transition, if you want to look at the history of technology of this world, you'll have to find it in the museum. If you want to know about innovations, you'll find that in the museum. And, you know, this research that is, you know, the kind of research that is diverse, because museums do not only look at old things, but they look at the old, the current, and the future. Actually,
the perception was museum is, you know, the reference. That's stuff for the museum.
Yes, Amakadizo in Uganda. But it's not that they are static. Currently, some museums are exhibiting climate change, you know, the evolution, where, you know, how climate was before, where are we going, what has caused this climate change, industrialization. All that, if you want to know all that about that science, you have to go back to museums.
Okay, absolutely. I like the futuristic touch that is given. It gives a fresh perspective to what we think museums are, at keeping old stuff.
And maybe if you go to the education curriculum, currently, if a child must pass, or if because the current curriculum is not the theory-based. It's now you have to understand, put things in your own context. And so they are trying to stop that, the teacher feeding the pupils or the learners, and then they cram and then put there. So we've noticed there is a changing or a shift from what was there before to present. And we have appreciated the national curriculum because now we have the pupils, the learners, visit museums to learn and to be able to implement. Yes.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Just a little bit away from policy and you know, the International Day celebration, we have in the studio a person who owns a museum, Mr. Tumusime, owns Igongo Museum. I was there. Of course, my enthusiasm for tourism took me there. And I was amazed. We entered there and we thought, we are going to go in there 30 minutes. In 2 hours, we were not done. Mr. Tumusime, tell us, establishing the, first of all, tell us about the Igongo Museum. If I go there, I know we're going Soroti, but eventually people will go east and they pass by Igongo, but they don't know that there's a museum, some of them. Walk us through briefly on Igongo Museum. If I come in there, what am I going to see?
Thank you very much, moderator. Before I go any further, let me first thank the government for this new interest in museums. Previously, museums were regarded as something that you had to have, but not as something you needed to have. You had to have it, you found it there. But recently, there has been this figure in museums. And I think when the government was talking about promoting tourism, among the things that me, who has traveled the world over, I've been in all continents, I've visited many countries, and whenever you go, the first place they want to show you is their museum.
True, I agree.
So I was always wondering, why is Uganda not like that? We have only one museum, it looked tired, it was... So I said, let's diversify. And before this theme came, our tagline, the theme of Igongo Museum was, where the future meets the past. That's our tagline.
And you're in line with this one now.
This has found me. They have just found me 14 years after, where the future meets the past. Because the young generation are always lost. They want to know, where do we go from here? And the first place to go is the past. What did our parents do? What guided them to do what they did? And the best place to find that information is in the museum. I see the government talking about Emyoga all the time. If you come to the museum at Igongo, the biggest section there is Emyoga. It's there, very big section. You go there and find that section and showing you what the people did before and how they did it in their less sophisticated way. But they did it so well, and it supported their families and their communities. And we think that if you build on that, there's no way you can fail to build on better technology to do even better. So I think where we preserve this knowledge, we also preserve values, we preserve paradigms. Things that support the future generation are found in that place. I think that's what guided us when I was starting Igongo Cultural Center and the museum.
And when I was there, I was taken through the things I did not know about the Ankoole culture. Food, you know, I don't know how they used to meet, and I had not known that there were the cattle keepers and the agriculturists were different. From outside, we think everything is the same, but...
people like picking those two, but they are different chores. They were the blacksmiths. They were the hunters. They were the people the carpenters. They were the people who made pots and people in ceramics. People had to earn a living, and they had to specialize. Because if you are all the time making pots, you don't have time to look after cattle. If you are cultivating, responding to weather and conditions and harvesting and planting, you may not have time to look after cattle. But if you're looking after cattle, you also may not have time to cultivate. So there were these complementary roles of the Ankoole culture, but which I think is the same across the Great Lakes region. And I think I've heard the same thing in West Africa and Southern Africa. It's the same thing. Ankole is where you visited, but it is shared with Rwanda, shared with Tanzania, shared with Toro, shared with Buganda. So it's the same everywhere.
All right. Let me come to the Honorable Minister. As we celebrate this day, it's perhaps important also to thinking strategically, so speaking. And one of the things is, what do you know from the Tourism Ministry about the uptake of museums as an option, either for education or for tourism purposes, especially by Ugandans?
First of all, just to supplement on what the Commissioner said and Prof over the theme, and I think the innovativeness of, because when you're talking about museums, you're talking about the story and the cultures that bring the whole package into life. And there have been some innovations just to plan and speak to the future in terms of, I mean, coming up with this information and story in terms of animation. We have partnerships with some people where someone can have this access to even on a tablet and the story told, then finally can go see the artifact. So those are one of the things that are already going on, planning forward. But first of all, the museums has become a very interesting product that we are selling. I want to thank people like Professor who started this much earlier. There are also a number of people with private museums under the current law that we passed last year. We work with them, we support them, and just to see how we grow this culture and also widen the product range just beyond the National Museum. So it's been interesting if you look at how our performance has been as the museums department, mainly museums and a few cultural sites. There's been a bit of improvement. For us at the museums, I think around 20, before COVID, we had our highest numbers, around 55,000 people visiting the museums. That's around 2019. Of course, but 2022, of course, they went down during COVID. 2022, we closed at around 67,000. We beat the pre-COVID days. We've closed 2023 at around 130,000, which is twice the number. So we see a lot of improvement because of the outreaches, the aggressive promotion, but also government's investment in beautifying some of these projects and resources going forward in most of the regions. Like she said, you will see something in Soroti. Actually, the day after the 18th and the 19th, we'll be handing over a site in Moroto to a contractor to develop better. So yeah, so from the government perspective, we are improving the products and growing as many as possible, working around partnerships with the private people to see how we create a variety. But also as we market more to the Ugandans and want to appreciate really. Because before someone would think that museum is only about, I mean, very few people would have interest. But there's a lot of interesting information in the museums from way back. And of course, government has supported us with the help of even development partners to see how we digitize this information and make it more attractive for any person to access, whether online or even when you come to the museum, how you get the feel of most of these products. So yeah, I think there is some progression from government and partnerships, and we'll continue innovating to make sure that the museum speaks easily to the population, to the generation in every kind of manner, so that everyone gets the kind of satisfaction they would love to get. Okay,
Honorable Minister, I love the digitization and maybe virtualization. Like, I've visited some museums where you enter and you feel like you are in the world that was, whatever you're watching. Like, I watched one in a neighboring country, I won't mention it. And it was great. When you exited, you felt, wow, the storytelling, the visualization, the sound effects, and everything else. I'm looking forward to our National Museum or any other. Taking us through. I see, Commissioner, you want to add something there.
No, I think Honourable Minister has said it all, but just to say that our National Development Plan 3 is very clear on diversification of tourism products and also increasing the length of stay for tourists from 7 to 14, and increasing on the product range, which the Honourable Minister has talked about. And so for us, if we are to achieve that, of course, is to tap into cultural heritage. And tapping into cultural heritage is to develop museums, and not only just developing, but we are creating that regional balance as well, putting in different regions so that, you know, each region is catered for and they all benefit. And at the end, the results are immense. We shall have revenue, we shall create jobs. Our, you know, part of the ministry objectives is to create more jobs. And so the more products we develop, the more jobs, the increased revenue.
Okay, very interesting. And earlier on, Honourable Minister, you spoke about law and policy. If you can take us through some basic things. Museum tells a story, is a custodian of history and so on, but it's also a money-making tool. What are the key things I should know as a Ugandan, Honourable Minister, just off top of your mind, if I'm considering working on a museum, or a few of us, what are some things that are encouraging, maybe, or things I should know?
If you want to get into the museum business?
Yes. No? Top of mind.
And Prof here will help us. First of all, it's good business. And we see tourism growing across board. So I would encourage, I don't know what your exact expectations are in terms of if you join the sector, but as government we've created all the good necessary environment to make it possible for anyone joining the sector to thrive without any problem. The new law works against, of course, kind of plagiarism, because there are people who would come up with maybe something and masquerade as a museum, putting things that, because someone can create a story about anything. But under the law, there is good regulation, would be able to follow up and make sure that as much as someone has a right to sell a product, it should be genuine. It should be selling to a Ugandan or any foreigner what is worth their money. So legislation-wise, yes, like I told you, we passed a new law. We've just worked on an instrument passed by Cabinet recently. Talking beyond even the museum, but all the cultural sites, and I think it should be before Parliament very soon for passing, so that we protect these sites, including a number of buildings in Kampala, because everything has a story behind it. And that's what we are pushing for, probably, so that the next generation still finds this information intact. They also make a contribution, because I know what we are saying today and what we are calling technology, the next 100 years will also be museum material. Interesting. So we do our part, this generation does. So yeah, as a ministry, we are committed, and government, to make sure that we protect what is ours, what we found, what our forefathers left. Yeah, I think.
Prof, it was a reference, to you. It was a reference to you, speaking from experience. Go on, please.
Supplement what the minister is saying. I think when you are going to establish a museum, you need to scan the environment and look for knowledge gaps. What gaps exist? Because nobody can have everything under one roof. And that's, if you go in many countries, you'll find the technology museums, you'll find the medical museums, if you will find astronomy museum, you find so many themes. There are so many themes that one can preserve and conserve and illustrate. Because, as we say, people own culture, but artists package it. The artist must be in position to package that information or knowledge you want to preserve and present to the public. So before you enter, you must first of all scan and say, I've chosen this sector to be the one I'm going to concentrate on, preserve, package, and present to the public. Very,
very interesting. Let me stay with you. People who are thinking about business, yes, there's the interest of preserving history and heritage, and there's the question of business. you have scanned the environment and you find that there's something I can create.
Yes.
What drives the individual creator of a museum if it's not government? Is there a value underneath there, or it's just a business?
I think it's a combination of both. I'm a publisher of books, and they say for us in publishing, we are guided by the paradigm that a publishing house is located between a stock market and a cathedral. So you have the desire to break even. If you start something, it should support itself, because you can't go. Even government nowadays, I think they want to break even. Once you have put in your money and you have built. But there's also that inner feeling of wanting, of having an attachment to preserve, to make sure that this thing is available. It could be an individual, it could be shared values within that community. And from what you can see in Uganda, there are many themes where Ugandans have great attachment, where they are not just looking for money, but they would like to preserve, if it is football, what was, if there were games, if it was architecture, if it is things that people want to preserve for the future. So I think there is that personal, altruistic, but of course there might be the commercial part. But I think in museums you shouldn't rush for the commercial part. Let it come on itself. Let it come. If you go to, I think in the UK, there's a church, is it St. Paul, where they were making, I think, about 300,000 pounds either per day or per week. But the people who built it, I don't think we are aiming at getting that money. But because people attach so much value to it, they now visit it regularly. If you go to the Vatican, you can see it's a museum of some kind. It's a cathedral, right?
Yeah, it is.
But it's a museum of faith. Now people around it are tapping into that history to make money. So you may, even you, the owner of the museum, may not be the one to make money. But once you establish the museum, then the people come and tap around that, what they used to call it. I think the president used that term, okulembeka. Many people will come and lembeka around the museum. The museum can be an attraction, but the people, our lembes, will come and establish themselves around it.
Okay.
Yes.
Just to enjoin to what the Prof is saying, Commissioner, opportunities. I'm so inclined sometimes when I get into these discussions to, it's an international celebration, and yet we want to use it to spur people. In terms of opportunities, the ministry and government, where do you see your eyes cast? He has just given us, I don't know, all sorts of examples on the possibilities. What are the possibilities if we think together in terms of museums?
Yes, in terms of museums, I would say the opportunities are there because we have a strategy within the Ministry of Tourism, Wildlife and Antiquities. We developed a museums and monuments strategy. And we looked at the opportunities of having not only government or our Ministry of Tourism museums in different regions, but we observed that most institutions are coming up with museums. Currently, we have Uganda Printing coming up with a museum. We have Parliament, we have Bank of Uganda, we have URA. And of course, this is because most people have observed that you can only use museums to showcase or use it to show the history of, the past history and inspire the future knowledge. And so, in regarding to your question, whereby the profits, our definitions of museums are non-profit or not-for-profit making, not-for-profit. And so, but because if you look at, Prof. James has explained, when you look at when the origin of museums, they were not looking at profits, but these were rich people who were wanting to keep and have their their history preserved. So for Uganda, and this one I have mentioned it several times, we need to tap into this untapped low-hanging fruit tourism product, which will not only attract tourists, but will also help our learners to know their past, present, and inspire the future generation or the next generation. We need to pass on this heritage to the future generation. And so, looking, why are we doing this? Why are we celebrating? One, we are creating awareness.
True.
We want all Ugandans to know the values, the significance of having museums, and cherishing them, getting to know that these are the only places that can talk about Uganda. We are going to have to renovate the National Museum in the coming month. And we want really to bring out the story clearly of, you know, beginning of Uganda to where we are and where we are going. That one will come in the near future, which is in the next few months. At least we should have the new museum renovated this year. And so we want to keep the public alert and interesting them to invest more in museums. That's why the minister talked about the law. This law we have provided for institutional museums. The law provides for private museums. The law provides for city museums. If there is Mbare City and there is a city museum, it will generate income for them. Even when our definition is not for profit, but there should be that sustainability part. So for you to sustain this heritage, you collect some little money. So we have provided for that in the law. There is a provision of community museums, traditional museums. Now we have Bunyoro coming up with a museum. We have a museum in Buganda Kingdom. The Bagisu are coming up with a museum. So really, you can see that the opportunities are there, and there is a lot in stock.
Okay. Just like the drift, thank you for breaking down the things. Institutional, city, people don't know the things, and this is an opportunity for them. Honorable Minister, I am dreaming of maybe say institutional museum. I don't want to give a name, but let's say Civil Aviation Authority, for argument's sake. Hope CAA would not quote me on this one. What support can I get? I have my idea. Maybe some things I have to put in the museum. Can I get support from the ministry, from government, to move forward on that?
Well, yes, really, it also depends. We have supported some, we've partnered. Sometimes it doesn't have to be necessarily money. We can secure the premises for you. And even when we are protecting this culture, even beyond individuals, because someone could be lucky, some think maybe it's bad luck, but there are some areas, for instance, we've gazetted, and a family, Western society could just destroy it thinking it is of no benefit to them, but when we have interest as a whole country. So even helping communities beyond just individuals. So there are a number of partnerships we do. We acquire the land, even put maybe some people, some guides, but also help you to come up with a strategy of how you can make some small money out of it for sustainability, or even, managing the... So yeah, we do participate even in a number of cultural events that talk about the history of these cultures where we want to showcase. We do some partnerships. But I think it's important that, like Prof said, that eventually, I want to assure you that this history will make some money. Eventually, it's important that culture is protected. I don't want to speak what my tribe is, but even we as human beings, I want my son or my daughter to have my name. Whether they keep it beyond my second grand kid, well, is a gamble. Maybe he would want to add his
Third generation.
But that just shows you how important it is to showcase who you are. And fact is, if there is nothing tangible that people can speak to or see to tell a story, definitely you're losing it out. People cannot imagine things. So it's important that if you have the opportunity, if you can, you start. We can find you along the journey. And after some period of time, first of all, you're doing a good cause for you, for society, even before we look at profit. But leave alone visitations to the museum itself in what we call entry fees. Usually they are minimal. But you can do a number of packages around the museum. You can do some accommodation, you can do some crafts. You can do a few other things that can bring some revenue for you, but also help the communities around this culture. Like where we are going, we'll have people come showcase culture, and we'll have the dinner at the museum actually. Well, a couple of things. So for me, I would encourage, and indeed the Uganda Airlines should have one.
I hope they will hear you.
Yeah, they should.
Yes, I would be interested actually.
Yes, NTV should. There is a lot of story about when we started having these pictures. Since I don't remember the years. And 17
years down.
Yes, but okay, for NTV, yes. But there was black and white before, in the 1960s.
True.
And interestingly, we have all this information at the Uganda Museum. I mean, the Uganda dance, how it started, the actual culture. People are dancing something else, calling it Maganda. People are dancing something else in Unyoro, saying it was. But we have all this information, we have some video clips, and that's why it's interesting for. If you've not visited some of these museums to understand this, please do. But I just want to encourage everyone out there. If you need some partnerships, you can come, we discuss, we can give you the technical expertise, we can give you some training if need be. But also, if something is worth it, we can go out of our way to even maybe see how we can co-invest and grow a resource together.
Honorable, I love, before the commission comes in, I love what you just said there, how the Maganda dance started, for example. You see, you are mentioning it. Personally, I can confess I'm hearing that kind of thing for the first time. Meaning that perhaps in terms of marketing, some destinations like the Museum of Uganda might be that you get one anecdote and you say, this one, if you want to know about this and more, come. I'm just thinking as a takeaway for me as we're discussing this. Let me come to Prof. Prof, the conceptualization of creating a museum, you have been there. Yes, you have the passion, you have the desire to keep the, maybe culture. The conceptualization, as a museum owner, what must happen to you at that level? I'm thinking institutions are thinking we are going to do museums. Communities, maybe cities. What is involved in the conceptualization of creating a museum, that process? I don't know if you can help us see that, so that if I'm having the idea, I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to do it. Yes, Prof.
I think you should start with your audience in mind. What would people want to see? What would they want to learn from this product? I call it a product. The museum as a product.
It is a product.
If I'm going to present something, what would they want to see? Here I'm talking about a cultural museum.
Yes.
Now, a cultural museum, people want to know what they used to eat or what they eat, how they dress, how they make a living. So people would like to know, because now we have become so modernized. You just go and pick you go and bring a tractor and cultivate, and you grow something, and you harvest, and you are there. But people may want to know, really, is this how people used to do it? Is this how people used to dress? How did the dress shape up to reach this level? You know, Gomez, the way it started, how it came from some other person who designed something convenient, and it picked momentum and has become a national dress. I would like to know, people would like to know this thing which we are proud of having. How did it start? And somebody can break it down to that level. If you are going to talk about the university, you talk about institutional, Makerere University, they also, you forgot to mention, they are also trying to build a museum, and I think they have already done so. How did they start before computers, before all this sophisticated? So you take them back, you see from that time, to come forward. You always from the past to the future, from the past to the future. And then you look at all the processes of how these things were made, created, how they succeeded, how they failed. If you go to the American, I think there's a museum for aviation. See how these planes were failing to take off and killing the people who were trying to fly them, and how big they were and how now small they have become, how the sizes have changed. If you see computers, they tell you the computer before was about the size of this room, and now you can put it in your pocket. So people want to know, really, how did we reach here? So they want to know the journey.
Yeah.
They may not know the destination, because destination is always shifting.
It's already, yes.
But the journey is always interesting. I think if you're going to conceptualize, you conceptualize basing on that journey. Are there milestones? Are there landmarks? Are there, that one can package and present to the viewers, to the visitors? And they will excite them. People will come, they go back saying, oh, so this is how a computer was?
Yeah.
It excites them. They are wowed, as it were.
Okay.
So I think that's the conceptualization. But as I mentioned at the beginning, people will own all that, but the artists are there.
The people who know.
The people who are capable. If you tell them your idea, they will go and design something. It's like building. I mean, you tell an architect, I want a house that where I can sleep, I can do this. They will go and package it and bring it to you.
Yes.
So there are even artists who can help you to package what you want to show the public. Yes. Okay. I used Makerere, the School of Fine Art. In Igongo, they worked with me, the sculptures, there are different artists, graphics specialists, constructors. They helped quite a lot. Okay. And those are there in the market.
And research, let me just stay with you a moment, because research is critical.
Very much.
Does research generate from inside, or there are people who do for you the research? Using the case of Igongo.
Igongo, we used, I had about 8 consultants whom I engaged. And the books are there. You may not believe it, that there's so much literature available. Okay. The monument we have for the eclipse has been in books in Uganda here for decades and decades. But you just pick one and you find, oh, so this is what happened. Okay. Then you call people and they say, oh yes, there was an eclipse in 1520 AD, and there were people coming from Rwanda with cows. The Banyoro had come, they had raided, then they, all that. So you find engaging 4 kingdoms were involved in that eclipse. This information has been on the books at the Uganda Museum, in Makerere, but people just didn't have an interest. But once you say, let's go look for this information will become available.
Okay, that's very eye-opening. Commissioner, product development is important. Prof there says that you need to do it from the standpoint of the person who is going to see it and appreciate it, and that's not easy to achieve. In terms of the ministry and government, capacity in terms of product development, do you have anything there that, okay, I'm thinking when maybe I have even the money, but I need that technical support. Can I come?
Maybe because that is a continuation.
Yes.
One, for museums, our main client is the school children.
Okay.
And this is world over. If you go to Nairobi, if you go to America, if you go anywhere in the world,
students,
you'll find students. And that's why for museums you must have an education department, because you need these teachers to engage the learners. And so when one is creating a museum, initially James had talked of themes. One, you must look at the themes. Of course, the national museums, usually being an umbrella, picks in different areas to be representative. But now when we are going to regions, of course, we look at different regions and put what is there. But the themes matter a lot. looking at the thematic areas that are required to be covered.
Yeah.
And that is what we are also going to do in the national museums, to look at least most of the themes.
Okay.
And so in terms of product development, we are trying, even in museums, to diversify, to have, because I told you earlier that how can a tourist stay in the museum for 2 hours? That is when you have maybe the presidential cars, maybe you have things, you know, like you have brought in digitization, and then there are specific rooms or exhibitions that requires a lot of attention on screens. And so the more products you have, the more the tourist is going to stay. And after that, you're sure that this tourist will go and eat outside. That's why his concept of having a museum, a restaurant, a hotel really works. Because you find that if this one stays here for a long time, then you need some soda, and in that way you are engaging this person. So regarding the product development, in the ministry we are really looking at developing as many products as possible. I told you this is one of our objectives in the National Development Plan, in the Tourism Master Plan, in the Tourism Strategic Plan, now in the Museums and Monuments Strategy. We are all looking at how we can keep engaging our clients. Of course, not forgetting the learners. And that's why we keep even breaking, you know, trying to simplify some of the information. I'll tell you that in Uganda, we have one of the oldest fossils in Africa, maybe even in the world.
I didn't know that.
This is, it is called Ugandapithecus major. It was discovered in a park. And of course, when I come to talk about that, I'll talk about evolution, you know, because we think that this fossil is related to human beings. And then I'll talk about climate change, because this is when we had eruptions in that part. And so then you find that, you know, most of what we need to know is intertwined. And then you can only know some of these things in museums. So for the products, we are trying to design within our strategy. We have put products or what we want to see by 2030. And everything is clearly spelled.
Very interesting. I like the panel that, how could all this information have come out? We have just unplugged it all here. And let me go to the Honorable Minister. Who catches your eye in this museum space? Who, I know the policy is there and everything else. How do I catch your eye as government?
First of all, just to say, also the business part, that we first of all, culture is one of the fastest growing products globally. That is why you see the biggest money-making destination in Africa is Egypt. They are not selling anything else. They are selling.
They have a desert.
They are selling. They have a desert. They are selling a story, culture, and the
pyramid.
findings, the pyramids, and so it is a fast-growing segment. And if we continue marketing it and positioning it well, we believe it will be something that will be able to make money for everyone, the private sector, and even we in government. Now, who catches my eye in terms of first of all, maybe the kind of person I'd want to make money from, maybe on the business perspective, is everyone. I mean, I go to the museum for a number of exhibitions. The other day we were doing one to do with the leadership of this country since time memorial. And it is always a new experience. Every exhibition comes with the something new. So ours is to encourage all the Ugandans. There is something good you can learn out there. You don't know everything, and it is different as you get it from school and when you come and get it firsthand, even to do with your culture. So yes, and also to encourage all the various institutions. We are partnering with some, like she was saying, and we have a lot of interest in cultural institutions, the kingdoms, to see how we work together. We have partnerships, I think, already with Uganda. We are doing something with Bunyoro to make sure that we push them, and just as a country, as a government, is to make sure that we protect this heritage for even the people who may not see its importance going forward. So yes, so there's a lot of interest, but ours still is to encourage everyone who has access. If you're a parent, bring the kids. But all of us are students, like I've said myself. I don't know everything, and whenever I go out there, there is an experience. If you go to Parliament, you'll see what the history is about. If you go to you look at the money, how it started and onwards. If you went to the museum,
I've been to Bank of Uganda.
Bank of Uganda. So there is something to tell, and most of these museums are accessible. One important aspect as well is the government's commitment to improving, of course, infrastructure. He was saying how probably there are some access challenges even to the Eclipse Monument. But of course, because when we establish something somewhere, there should be accessibility. And like we say, tourism in a nutshell is everyone's business. All the sectors support each other to make sure we achieve this. And of course, we thank government for its commitment towards security, towards infrastructure development. It's now easy to move around the country with ease. We always say even in the smallest bits, you can visit and access a number of sites. So who do I have interest on? Everyone. The one who can invest, the one who we can do any business with can come. Our office is open. We have a discussion, see how we move forward. And whoever has any interest around this sector. But I want to assure you that at the end of the day, Mr. Tumsime here will tell you that finally money is made. Money is
comes into the picture.
Yes, finally. Either if not for you, but for someone after you. But most importantly, as you protect the culture and the story about you as an individual.
Okay. Viewers, if you're wondering what we're discussing, museums, and it's ahead of the celebration of International Museums Day, which is on the 18th, just a couple of days away. And we have been centering down the conversation to opportunities that lie in here, but also for learning opportunities, not only business opportunities. And you had the minister and the commissioner and a practitioner, one who owns the museum here. Commissioner, I want to come to you as we wind down your final words in our discussion and ahead of our celebration. Then I'll come to Prof and then finally the minister.
Okay, thank you, moderator. One is, of course, the minister will do it to invite the general public to participate. But mine is to encourage Ugandans to conserve their heritage. I normally argue that a nation without its past is a dead nation. And so we need to call upon all Ugandans to get interested. We need to call upon Ugandans to keep those artifacts in their homes. And if they can't take care of them, we have curators, conservators, they can hand them over. We need to call upon Ugandans to stop encroaching. Of course, we have the law, so they should conserve and protect their heritage jealously.
Okay, thank you so much, Madam. Prof, in a minute, what's your encouragement on this celebration of the Day of the Museums internationally?
They call upon all parties to develop this culture of interlinkages. You have been asking about where should people get that knowledge, or how should they be inspired? There is so much around us that can inspire us. I was reading recently some among the artifacts that are being released from the British Museum from Uganda is something about Nyabingi. Nyabingi was a spirit that was taken up by different groups and cults and made different artifacts. Nyabingi was originated from a place called Rwentobo on the way to Kabare. And spread into Rwanda and Kigezi and Ankole, and that was at the beginning of the end of the last century. But people didn't seem to bother. But the British were so interested, and the people from the Jamaicans, people picked it up and made money from it. It is a very important source of money. We've had Gobyamujeng here. The history there is so rich, it embraces the entire country and beyond. All these names we have, Mugasa, Mukasa, originate from that place in Mvende, in Sembaburi. But people have not taken interest. I'd imagine there are people who may want to develop it or work with the government and develop those themes. So there are many themes we can develop.
Okay.
And it's a question of networking, research. Our universities here should put in more effort in uncovering those areas that would be of interest to our children and ultimately the tourists.
Thank you so much, Prof. Minister, Honorable Minister, you have the last word and allow us to ask you to invite the people to come to Soroti. Your last word as we conclude this discussion.
Of course, my last word just to ask on what Mr. Tumsime, to add on what he was saying, and indeed that will be a discussion. I think the Commissioner will come here and give you the detail. Yeah. I will be receiving some artifacts from the UK, some from Kenya, and it has taken serious negotiation and effort. So it's interesting how a white man who is not of our color or culture saw the importance of this, and for us, we still don't seem to see. Of course, that's why we say that in the long run, money will be made. Mine is to invite everyone. Please come to Soroti on the 18th. You can come on the 17th. We'll start activities early, like she told you, Nyero Rock. We'll move around. We'll have the Vice President as the guest of honor, representing government, plus the local leaders. We will have a feel of everything about Soroti, including for the young people, the nightlife, the food, of course, after the Museums Day, but also the story, because we'll be, I think, in the Luchiko Hall, where it's one of the places where, when we were getting independence in 1962, where the Union Jack was lowered and the Ugandan flag, and the gentleman who did it that day is still alive, and he'll be telling us what it felt like at that time. So these are things, because he's one of the few who happened to host, and he can tell what he felt and what the story and the mood was. So I want to encourage everyone. Soroti is not far. The road is good. You can drive anytime, whether in the night. The security is good. Come and we enjoy, explore Soroti. Some of us who are going to stay for a couple of days to enjoy more, please, you're welcome to come and have a feel of the region.
Okay. Thank you so much, all of you, my panel, discussing the International Museums Day, which is coming on the 18th. I just want to introduce them one more time. State Minister, we had State Minister for Tourism, Mr. Martin Mugara, Commissioner for Museums, Ms. Jacqueline Besije forgive me for that. And finally, Professor James Tumsime, who is the proprietor for Igongo Museum in Mbarara.
I'm Dr. Tumsime.
Dr. Tumsime.
Not Professor.
Please go to Soroti and enjoy the International Museums Day.
We have published, so